Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Skylar, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use local multiplayer with two gamepads in one Unity system. It's really simple, and in the background you can see me just messing with the inputs, showing you that it's working. So, just to jump right in, I'm going to assume that you have an understanding of Unity, and you know where project settings is, but if you don't, it's edit, project settings, and input. So you're going to go into input, and you're going to show these, you're going to have like a bunch of axes there, and if you've never set up input axes before, you're going to have another entire set of them. But basically, you're going to create these axes that I'm showing on the screen right now. There's buttons and axes. So copy them basically, and I will go over how the axes work and how the buttons work separately in just a second as I close these. So you can take a look at these settings, how they're set up. If you need to pause the video as soon as I'm done talking about how they work, then you can go back and pause it. So almost done, there we go. Alright, so axes, real fast. On a joystick, let's say you have two joysticks. I'm setting up two joysticks. So you need to set up 18 inputs, at least with an Xbox controller, for each joystick that you have. I now have 36 inputs for the left trigger, left bumper, right bumper, buttons, A, B, X, Y, start, back, and each joystick, like left and right joystick, and the D-pad. Now, depending on the gamepad that you're actually using, this might vary a little bit, but the general rules apply. So for my Xbox controllers, I've set up this as the axis for the left trigger. The left trigger I'm calling LT1 on the first gamepad, and I've given it a gravity of 1000. Basically everything has a gravity of 1000. I found a dead zone of 0.04 is best for general usage. If you want to find a better one, I'm sure there's something better for your controllers. The sensitivity is either 1 or 1000 on all of these. It doesn't matter, but if you find a better solution for you, again, it's up to you. So again, for axes, you set the type to joystick axis. You give the axis whatever axis it is for that button, the physical button on the controller. So for the left trigger on any game, or on the Xbox gamepad, it is the 9th axis. And then you give the joypad number, the gamepad number, whatever joystick you want it to be. So my first joystick, which is basically my gamepad, which is the controller. I know it's complicated. There's a lot of stupid words for this thing. I name every button that is on my first gamepad joystick 1, or I give it joy number 1. I've also put a number at the end of whatever I've named it, so I can call it later in code, and I'll explain why that's important later. So now you see I have two left triggers, two right triggers, two of everything basically, with the number at the end of it. I'm doing this because each controller needs its own axis for input. I need to be able to grab the button and the value that it returns through code. So at the end of the name, again, you put a number, and now if we go into our debug, which I haven't opened, you will see that I've created this script which basically prints out to this text, or to these text objects, UI text objects, to say, what's my value. So the left trigger is going to return a value of 0 to 1, and the right trigger is going to return a value of 0 to 1. Now for left and right triggers, actually this is kind of a side note for Xbox and like general gamepad usage. There is another way to grab input from both the left and right triggers, which is the third axis, and I'll put a document that shows all of the axes at the bottom, and yeah, you'll have plenty of documentation, so don't worry. But you can also get from -1 to 1 using both of the triggers. It's kind of weird though, because when you hold both down, it becomes 0, which is basically like not holding anything down, so I chose to use this method. So the reason that I put the number at the end is not only to identify which buttons are for which gamepad, but now I have this document which can give, I can give it some gamepad number, which for example 1, and then I can say, hey, get me joystick number 1 when I call the input. Oh well, when this update runs, and I get this axis of left trigger with plus gamepad 1, I can get the information specifically for the joysticks, or for gamepad 1's left trigger. I know it's complicated. I'm sorry. It's actually not as complicated as it sounds. So the really important part here is when you get axis input, and the reason you put the numbers there is when you get axis input, you can add the number at the end of your string to the search string. So this is actually going to get me axis left trigger for both of them until it sees, oh hey, you have a number there. So this appends, which means it adds, to the string here. So it's really simple, and I basically did this for every single one. Axis and button is the same basically. I can get the string plus some integer, whatever. And I can then just print it out as a text object, or on a UI text object. So that's all that this is doing right here. And if I were to go and set this up to be in a game, I could actually grab LT1 or LT2 for each player and specifically do their own things. So it's the same thing for the joysticks on the controllers. You can see I'm doing left and right joystick movement for each of them independently, and they have their own values. And you can go from -1 to 1, -1 to 1. So it's really simple, honestly, and I really hope this was useful, because I know that the documentation online and the discussion boards are kind of confusing and convoluted. So I again hope this was helpful, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know if you need anything else for Unity, I guess. I don't know. Later. Oh, one more thing. So I noticed that sometimes the gamepads get messed up, and they will try to work. Well, you'll have to press both of them at the same time for one button to work. So the way I figured out how to solve this was to turn the controllers off, unplug it, and you might have to turn off your computer, but sadly Windows doesn't actually have a reset controller number. So yeah, just save your stuff, close your computer, turn it back on, and in a few seconds it'll be back to normal. Good luck.